but it's about a seduction. You're going on a first date here. You're not like, don't ask them to marry you right away. You know, you just introduce yourself and your catastrophic failures as a human being one at a time. You know, like I didn't tell my girlfriend that I was a terrible person when I first met her. She had to find that out. That was the cost of going to dinner with me. You're going to do way better, optimization or not, sending emails that are customized and personalized. Just because job boards are so saturated and there's no leverage there. It's a black hole, really.
I'm sure that warm emails or slightly warm emails do even better than the cold emails, right?
Right, totally.
And people don't realize how big their network actually is. Mm-hmm. The thing for me is, if you've gone to college even, everyone who also went to that college is no longer a cold email. Right? You have at least some area to connect on them with. And that can be, again, a couple percentage or even double your chance that you get a response in general. So to me, I love those numbers because that's what I've been, virtually what I've been preaching for quite some time. And that gives some quantitative backing to it. I didn't feel like I was a fraud in saying those things because I know them to be true from other industries.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
It's incredible to have that information there as well. Can you go into just a little bit of detail on what the optimizations are finding there? Is it, is it important to, for example, like thank the person, or, what content for anyone watching when you're sending out an email can be helpful to them?
Yeah, great question. Actually, this is like some of the biggest headaches we've had have been on this kind of question. So I guess a couple of quick thoughts. First off, the politenesses, the sort of greeting, hey, dear so-and-so, thanks, bye, or best, or whatever, none of that really matters. It's all just noise in the system. The main thing you want to think about is what is the first piece of content that you're going to share with that person that's going to register on the radar. And here, one of, I think, the biggest mistakes people will tend to make is to give the recipient homework. So if I'm applying to work, Ken, with you, I'm like, hey, Ken, how's it going? And the first thing that I send is like, hey, I just finished up this project. Here's a link to a Jupyter notebook or a bunch of code on GitHub. Please check it out. Like, you have a life. You have things you want to be doing other than this. And everybody else does. Hiring managers do too. They're people as well. So failing to recognize the humanity of the person you're sending this to, if it's not a message you would be excited to get, like, you have no reason to expect another person to be excited about receiving that message. And so as a result, you do want to share content. There's no question, but you want to make that content digestible. So how do you make that content digestible? Well, you can be Ken Jee, you can make your own YouTube channel, it's wildly successful, or you can write blog posts. That's another angle, lots of nice visualizations and so on. But one of the best ways to do this is actually to build live apps. So for example, if you want to make, I don't know, let's say like a predictor to, okay, I'll just say it's the first thought that came to mind. It's kind of grim, but like a life expectancy predictor. Somebody enters their demographic information. It's like, hey, you're going to die on this date. Turn it into a toy. Make it into an app, and then that way you're sending them a toy to play with. Their curiosity will be piqued, and rather than saying like, hey, want to read 500 lines of code, you're saying, hey, want to find out like when you're going to die, or whatever it is. So that's really number one. You can
if you don't respond to this email, it's going to tell you tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. The counter is going to go down. Yeah. So you can always link to like your GitHub repo or whatever else from that live app as well. And if they're interested, they'll check it out. But it's about a seduction. You're going on a first date here. You're not like, don't ask them to marry you right away. You just introduce yourself and your catastrophic failures as a human being one at a time. Like I didn't tell my girlfriend that I was a terrible person when I first met her. She had to find that out. That was the cost of going to dinner with me. So it's the same thing. That makes you
more endearing now. So
exactly. at least I have a sense of humor about my feelings.
Well, I used to get a ton of emails about mentorship. Will you be my mentor? Will you do these things? And mentorship is legitimately a relationship. Mm-hmm. And to just go in and ask someone that, it's like asking someone in the first 5 minutes of them on a date if they want to sleep with you, right? It's just like, that's a lot. And most people are going to say no and completely balk at it. And so, I think you're 100% right. It's like, hey, at least give them some time, one, and some reasons why you might be a viable candidate that that they again won't balk from. My one of the biggest things I stress is to show rather than to tell. Yeah. On the resume, on any of these things, you want to show that you have certain capabilities. And projects, or having a toy or a web app, is the epitome of showing, right? I would so much rather play around with a web app than go through someone's Jupyter notebook. That to me is like, let's see this in action. Another thing that I would be interested in you guys A/B testing is, I think you can embed Gifs in LinkedIn. And so you just make a little GIF of your project of like, hey, there's the difference between this and this, or, it takes 15 seconds, but it's already embedded there. I can see the message. That to me is like, okay, this is creative. They clearly know how to communicate their findings as well. So getting creative with these things. If I see something that I have never seen before in a message, yeah, I respond to a lot of messages anyway, just because, I enjoy that for the most part, unless they're like really long, really big. But, those are things that people don't really consider.
Yeah, and I do think there's like a related notion too, that we kind of have this implicit contract as human beings where if I send you a message that clearly has required none of my time was consumed in writing it, then like you're going to go, well, screw you, I'm not responding to this. Yes. And so people, I think, get into this mindset of like just spamming on LinkedIn, playing this numbers game. What we've actually found is there's a disproportionate leverage in saying like, okay, I'm going to investigate this person. I'm going to do some real creeping. I'm going to look up their company. I'm going to look up what their degree programs, and find all the commonalities. You alluded to like broadening your network and saying, oh, if they went to the same school, then they're part of your network. Well, there are a lot of other axes that works along too. Like, did they, in my case, were they a physicist before? Did they have some startup experience, and so on? Like, all these things are little threads you can tug on to make it clear that you're not just spamming a whole bunch of people. They're the special person to you, and that's really important.